Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some people. On A View from the Outside this week being the 22nd of August 2020, we look at confidence, C-O-N-F-I-D-E-N-C-E, confidence, with the view being that the time has come for each and every Vincentian, both at home and in the Vincentian diaspora, to ask the critical question of whether they or you have confidence in the administration in St Vincent and the Grenadines. The Cambridge Dictionary defines confidence as a feeling that you can trust someone or something to work well or behave as you expect. And the Collins Dictionary states that if you have confidence in someone, you feel that you can trust them. Those definitions tell us that confidence is a feeling of trust, trusting someone or something. Confidence involves expectation, an expectation for someone or something to behave and work well, especially in the case of people who are tasked to carry out roles and responsibilities. It is with those definitions in mind, and taking a cursory look at recent headlines around the world, why we here on A View from the Outside strongly encourage Vincentians to ask the critical question of whether you have confidence in the current administration in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Various headline news show how citizens in various countries around the world put pressure on their respective government when they are not satisfied with the way their government behaves, and when their government's behavior causes them to lose confidence in them. The situation in Lebanon shows that the people there are dissatisfied with their government. They are fed up of the neglect, dilapidation, and corruption which pervade the country. The people there have lost confidence in the government, especially with the recent explosion in Beirut, which killed more than 200 people and left in excess of 5,000 people injured and disaffected. Mass protest in Lebanon has caused the Prime Minister, Hassan Diab, to announce the resignation of the entire Lebanese government. A look at Belarus shows that the citizens of that country have lost confidence in the government of Alexander Lukashenko, who has ruled that country for the last 26 years and who has now been given a 6th term to rule. That country is now in turmoil. There is mass protest there because the people are dissatisfied with the results of the recently conducted elections, which are said to have been rigged and deemed fraudulent by many countries and international organizations, including the European Union. Their president declared that he won the August 9th elections with 86% of the electorate, a situation where it is alleged that the elections were rigged to keep him and his government in power. News out of the West African country of Mali also indicate that the people there have lost confidence in their government. There is mass protest on the streets there. The people's dissatisfaction is brought on by the allegations of corruption and election fraud. Mali's president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, has been forced to resign and the country is on the brink of anarchy. It has been reported recently that the Russian people are losing confidence in their president, Vladimir Putin, and his government. He has been in power in Russia for the last 2 decades. It is said that 87% of the Russian people now have no confidence in him. There have been allegations of mass corruption leveled at him and his government, the most recent being the suspected poisoning of the opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who is currently in a critical condition in a German hospital. He's suspected of being poisoned, and that suspicion is laid all the way back to the Kremlin in Russia. Vincentians, with those kinds of examples and many more around the world in mind, when you look at what pertains for governance in St Vincent and the Grenadines, can you say that you have confidence in the regime that runs our country? Do you have confidence in a regime which has been in power for almost 20 years now and has overseen dilapidation and disrepair everywhere in the country? A regime which is now scrambling to try to finish a few projects in an attempt to get our votes to try to get a 5th term? A regime who one of its members openly declared in the parliament of the country that its leader has no moral or legal authority to speak for him anytime, any place, anywhere? Do you have confidence in a regime which is riddled with allegations of bribery and corruption? One which is bent on bribing you, the electorate, with lumber, cement, and galvanized every election cycle, and now their crassly named love box, and then allow you to starve and allow the country to go into disrepair after that? Do you have confidence in a regime which ignores the Constitution, the highest law of the land? Do you have confidence in a regime which has shown that it has very little or no regard to provide us, the people of the country, with financial accountability? Financial accountability which the very Constitution mandates that they must provide? Do you have confidence in a regime which the court finds that it is remarkably using the Constitution of the country as a sword to browbeat you, the citizens of the country? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime which has been accused of thievery in the last elections, which were held on the 9th of December 2015, an election where the head of the regime rushed to be sworn in the dead of night, even before, as evidence has shown, the final count of the election was not completed in accordance with the law? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime where election petitions, which are to determine the very legitimacy of the government, still languish in court almost 5 years after those petitions were filed? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime which has created distrust in the institutions of the country, including the judiciary, whose leader publicly declared that you can go to all the court in the world, but you must come back to Papa, referring to himself? Do you have confidence in that kind of regime? Do you have confidence in a regime which is seen to be hounding and threatening ordinary everyday citizens with compulsory acquisition of their lands? A regime which has actually compulsorily acquired lands, in some cases allegedly without any consultation or dialogue with the landowner? Vincentians, the casualties are mounting up. They include the now deceased Randolph Toussaint, the former commissioner of police, who, without having received compensation, died, compensation which was ordered by the court for his land. Marcus de Freitas, who 14 or so years after his property was compulsorily acquired, still languishes without payment, which the court ordered for his property. Ras I Shaka, whose prime lands at Buckerment are compulsorily acquired from him without wanting to pay him a fair market price for his land. Simone Murray and her husband, Dr. Wayne D. Murray, and their family, with their lands in the Murray's village area, who, allegedly without consultation, had their lands compulsorily acquired without any knowledge of whether or not they will be paid or how much they will be paid for their land. Many former landowners at Argyll are also included here, those who had their lands compulsorily acquired during the construction of the Argyll International Airport and who still remain unpaid for their lands. One cannot mention the hounding of citizens for lands and not highlight the grave injustice which was done to Bigger Biggs, a businessman who had his multi-million-dollar business completely destroyed and left in ruins, and who was arrested on his own land and prevented from having the quiet enjoyment of his property. Vincentians, this method of acquiring the lands of citizens has left many people wondering who is next, whose lands will be acquired next. Many are wondering whether this is the new form of colonization by someone who purports to be the biggest anti-colonialist. Vincentians, can you say that you have confidence in a regime which is accused of having allowed Dave Ames, the proprietor of Buckermont, to breach his bail conditions and abscond the country at the most unusual port of exit, Chateaubriand, while on charges for tax evasion and fraud? The same regime, do you have confidence in them, who now, after many years and so many promises, having allowed Ames to leave, have not secured payment for the workers who are owed their wages? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime that has presided over and refused to take responsibility for an economy which languishes at the bottom of the table when compared to other OECS and CARICOM countries? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime which, despite the promise to be tough on crime and the causes of crime, has presided over escalating crimes where murder, rape and sexual assault, robbery and other violent crimes have skyrocketed out of control? Can you say that you have confidence in a regime which promises to carry out investigations but never present the conclusion of any of those investigations to you, to us, the Vincentian people? Farmers of Greggs and Lauders and many other farmers on the windward and leeward sides of the country, farmers all over the country, can you say you have confidence in a regime that many say deliberately destroyed your industry, the agricultural industry, destroyed your livelihood and sapped away your independence from you? Farmers, for those of you who, despite all of the difficulties and challenges, continue to try to eke out a living by continuing to plant your crops and grow your animals, can you say that you have confidence in a regime which has not protected you from having your crops and animals stolen? Can you say that you have confidence in such a regime where you seem to have no protection when thieves take your crops and animals? Can you say, Vincentians, that you have confidence in a regime which has had so many failed projects and millions of dollars unaccounted for? The latest of those failed projects being the geothermal project, on which vainglorious boasts were made that your electricity bills will be cheaper and that St Vincent and the Grenadines will be exporting electricity to Barbados. A project which is now all but completely abandoned? Vincentians, there are so many more things which we here on A View from the Outside can use to jog your memory, including the treatment of Yogi Farrell, drugs in the custody of the police going missing, the attempt to deposit $1 million in cash in the bank account of the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines, the regime rewarding delinquent and bad behavior by some public servants, cocaine intercepted in Greece, which was allegedly transshipped through St Vincent and the Grenadines, a stash of guns, ammunition, cash, and millions of dollars worth of endorsed checks seized in Florida from a Venezuelan airplane, which listed its destination, St Vincent and the Grenadines. Vincentians, there are more, but time does not allow us to discuss them here. We therefore urge you to listen and reflect on the many things which you can talk about. But as you do so, ask yourself the question whether you have the confidence to discuss or talk about these things openly without fear of reprisal. It is important that you keep the discussion going. We implore you to register to vote, and we implore you to go out and vote to put an end to the misery and pain that you are now made to endure, or that you have been made to endure. Those of you in the Vincentian diaspora, you have a role to play. You can encourage those at home in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to register to vote and to go out and vote to put an end to the regime in whom you and they have no confidence. No citizen, no country has to put up with any regime in whom they have no confidence. We implore you to develop confidence in yourself, to put an end to the life of a regime in whom you have no confidence. And as you do so, as we all do so, let us all be mindful of the words of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, whose 133rd birthday was on the 17th of August 2020, who said, "If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in life." Vincentians, let us not be defeated. We all have a responsibility to ensure that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a government in whom the citizens of the country have confidence. Until next week, Randy and the listeners, this is Brereton Horne with A View from the Outside, reminding all of you to send your feedback, as usual, to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside. And we ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, JMB Horne. Have a pleasant Saturday. Have a wonderful Sunday and a productive week ahead, where all of us take steps to ensure that we have a government in whom we have confidence. All the best to you, Randy, and the listeners.